Hello, I'm R.A. Spratt, and I want to welcome people joining us this week on the Yoto podcast platform. Now, just so you know, most of the bedtime stories I tell here are standalone stories. But over the last year, we have been dipping in and out of the epic story of Odysseus, the hero from ancient Greek mythology. And this week, I'm going to be telling the second last installment of that tale. So if you can jump in right here, that'll be fine. I'm sure you'll pick it all up. But if you did want to go back to the beginning and start from the first episode, you can search back through the episodes. The first episode's called Odysseus, as told by Nanny Piggins, and it dropped on January 8th, 2025. Or you can go back and listen to any of the other episodes. You're going to find fairy tales, myths, legends, and mysteries. I hope you enjoy them all. Now let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Bedtime Stories with me, R.A. Spratt. Well, it's an absolutely gorgeous last day of autumn here in Barrel as I record this. I'm recording this on a Saturday before it drops. It's just absolutely stunning. It's cold at night. We had our first frost the other day, so it's getting cold at night. But when the sun comes up, the sky is so blue and clear and still the last of the autumn leaves on the trees. It's really gorgeous here. I've had another busy week. It's 2 weeks now since I finished writing Romeo and Juliet. So I've actually had 2 weeks off writing books, which is unusual. I'm almost always writing a book at some stage or other. So I've been trying to relax and sleep more because I got a lot coming up. But the thing is, when you spend so much time writing books, what tends to happen is towards the end of the book, as you get closer to the deadline, you push everything else in your life aside so that you can focus on the book. So a lot of things build up around you that you think, I'll just deal with that when the book's done. So I've spent the last sort of 2 weeks just catching up on a whole bunch of things. Like for example, I really need to get a haircut because I'm going down for the big book launch and, there'll be photos and stuff. So I really, really need a haircut. But I'm going away on tour on Monday. And I live in a country town, so there's not really any way you can get a haircut on a Sunday. So I've got like 2 hours before my 2-hour window of opportunity to perhaps get my haircut today. And I really strongly suspect it's not going to happen. But that's the type of thing, in between books, I try to sort out my tax and get my haircut and speak to my children. And as I say, I'm going away this week. I'm going to the Bellingen Writers Festival, which is a town up near Coffs Harbour. So I'm actually visiting schools all around that area up near Bellingen. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I haven't been to that part of the world for a while. I think last time I went there for a holiday was about 25 years ago. So it's going to be really fun to go up there and visit all the schools and everything. But it's a jam-packed schedule. I'm doing 12 presentations in 3 days. So I'm a bit worried about my voice, and that's why I've been trying to get rest in and everything. And also I've just mistimed it terribly because I promised my daughter, who's doing her final year at school this year, that I would travel less this year, but I couldn't do no travel. And when I was offered the Bellingen Writers Festival last year, I was like, okay, well, that will be one of the 2 or 3 things I will do. But it's just it's landed on the worst week. My daughter's got, I think, 3 assessments, maybe even 4 or 5. But she's got a whole bunch of assessments this week. She's super stressed. She's really sick as well. And then my younger daughter has 3 exams as well. So my poor husband's going to be stuck dealing with them all this week. I mean, I'll be on the phone and I can sort things out via the internet, but it's just it's not ideal. It's one of those hectic weeks. And then I'm going to be flying back from Bellingen to Sydney and I won't even get to come home. I'll have to fly straight down to Melbourne to launch Friday Barnes 13. But that's a huge deal. Friday Barnes 13. People have been waiting for that for a while. The book got pushed back. So I'm very, very pleased that it's going to be out there in the world. Which brings me to the reading we're doing today. As you know, last week we started a Friday Barnes mystery from the last book, Friday Barnes 12, Collision Course. We did chapter 10, which was all about, Friday's rush to Switzerland to help her mother out with her legal problems. And it turns out that maybe her mother didn't do it, and they followed the clues to the local Italian restaurant. So we're going to pick up today by reading the next chapter, chapter 11. All right, so here we go. Chapter 11, Moving On. Friday, Melanie, Quantum and Ms. Decker had to sit and wait at the police station while the detective sergeant conducted a raid on the restaurant. Friday used the opportunity to call Uncle Bernie. He didn't pick up, so she had to leave him a message. "Hi, Uncle Bernie," said Friday. "It's me, Friday, your niece. I'm in Switzerland at CERN getting Mum out of prison. Melanie's here too, but we lost Ian on the way here. He didn't get off the train at the right station. Maybe he fell asleep and went on to Geneva, or he had to get off earlier. Could you look for him? I'm getting a bit worried. I hope you're okay. Sorry about the mess." The phone cut out as the recording time came to an end. Friday frowned. "Did I say the right things?" "You asked him to look for Ian," said Melanie. "That was the main thing." "I don't want him to worry," said Friday. "You just told him his stepson is missing," said Melanie. "Worrying is unavoidable." "He'll find him though, won't he?" said Friday. "Bernie is a department head at Interpol," said Melanie. "No one would have access to better resources than him. He'll find Ian, or Ian will find us. It'll be okay." Friday didn't feel okay, but they didn't have long to wait before the detective sergeant returned with Salvatore Borelli. The restaurant owner had been brought in for formal questioning, but he'd started confessing as soon as the detective sergeant walked in through the front door. "Those scientists are the worst customers," Mr. Borelli complained. "They do statistical analysis to work out which is the cheapest thing on the menu. Then they bring their own water bottles so they don't have to pay for drinks. They never ever tip, and they're either rude to the waitstaff or worse, they try and flirt with the waitstaff." "But that doesn't justify stealing," said the detective sergeant. "They steal from me all the time," yelled Mr. Borelli. "They sit around talking about physics for hours when all they paid for is one €9 plate of pasta." "Being frugal isn't a crime," said the detective sergeant. "But when they get excited," continued Mr. Borelli, it was liberating to get all this off his chest, "they start demonstrating their hypotheses using the cutlery and tableware." "Well, that's not a crime either," said the detective sergeant. "One of the waitresses was hit in the head by a salt cellar," said Mr. Borelli. "OK, that is a crime," said the detective sergeant, "if it was done intentionally." "When I confronted the idiot who did it," said Mr. Borelli, "he apologised but explained that he was just demonstrating the effect of gravity on a hadron travelling at high speed. Can you believe it?" "But still, that doesn't give you the right to sell stolen property," said the detective sergeant. "I didn't steal," said Mr. Borelli. "It's my tablecloth. I paid €6 for that at the restaurant supply store. That woman ruined it by writing all over it. I was just trying to recoup my money." "But it's her intellectual property," said the detective sergeant. "Actually, it's CERN's intellectual property," said Ms. Decker. "Everything Dr. Barnes writes down belongs to us." "It's graffiti," said Mr. Borelli. "You can't have intellectual property rights over graffiti." "He's got a point," said Miss Decker. "It is a grey area. Dr. Barnes committed a crime first by damaging his property. A judge could go either way. It's an interesting dilemma." "Like a thought experiment," said Quantum. "Shut up about your stupid experiment," said Mr. Borelli. "Why did you set up a restaurant near CERN if you hate scientists so much?" asked Friday. "I didn't know that's what they were like," said Mr. Borelli. "I assumed, like everyone else on the planet, they would eat and enjoy food. But no, they have the culinary palate of 6-year-olds. They don't deserve a restaurant. They just want a cup of noodle vending machine." The detective sergeant sighed and rubbed his forehead. The whole situation was giving him a headache. It was becoming increasingly apparent he was not going to get to press charges against anyone for terrorism. Plus, the Paris police would not be happy when they got the news that they'd staged a 24-hour manhunt for a 15-year-old who had both snuck out of the country and was, in fact, innocent of any crime. "How would you like to proceed?" he asked Ms. Decker. "It's CERN's intellectual property he was trying to sell on the internet." "Well, we've retrieved the original," said Ms. Decker, indicating the tablecloth on the desk. "No one can understand Dr. Barnes' equations. They apparently don't work. I have no complaint with Mr. Borelli. In fact, he has my deepest sympathy." "Thank you," said Mr. Borelli. "My only concern now," continued Miss Decker, "is you, Detective Sergeant. I want to know why you haven't released Dr. Barnes yet, and how much I should sue your department for her wrongful imprisonment." "You can't accuse me of that," said the Detective Sergeant. "She refused to cooperate." "Every minute you continue to hold her is another $1,000 I will add to our claims," said the lawyer, glancing at her wristwatch. "Fine, I'll go and get her," said the detective sergeant. He did it himself instead of sending a junior officer. He somehow felt like he was the one who had narrowly escaped a disastrous interrogation. Well, that chapter was a bit shorter than I thought, so how about I just read you a little bit more? Chapter 12, Enter Mum. 5 minutes later, Dr. Barnes was led out of the holding cells. Friday hadn't known what to expect. It had been 2 years since she'd seen her mother. But throughout her childhood, Friday's mother had always looked the same. She had a uniform, saggy blue cardigan, long brown skirt, and cheap nylon sneakers. as well as messy green hair that made her permanently look like she'd just been attacked by a very angry magpie. But when Friday's mum emerged from the cells, she looked different. Well, she didn't look different. She was still the same dowdy, scruffy scientist, but the police had taken her own clothes, no doubt for forensic testing, and she was wearing a bright orange jumpsuit. She looked like an aging felon from a prison movie. All she needed was some neck tattoos, and she would have made a convincing gangster's mole. "Mum, are you okay?" asked Friday. "Sorry, what?" asked Mum. "Are you okay?" asked Friday. "Friday," said Mum, suddenly recognising her daughter. "What are you doing in Switzerland?" "Getting you out of jail," said Friday. "Really?" said Mum. "There was no need to travel all this way for that. I quite liked jail. It was very quiet, plenty of time to focus on my work. They bring meals to the room, and the toilet is right there next to the bed, so convenient and time-effective." Melanie coughed into her hand while saying, "Told you so." Friday rolled her eyes. "Who's this?" asked Mum, as she adjusted her multifocals and peered at Melanie. "Hello, Dr. Barnes," said Melanie. "I'm Melanie, Friday's best friend. We've met before, but you were busy hugging Mr. Dr. Barnes at the time and leading him back to your helicopter, so you may not remember me." Not only had Friday's mum not remembered Melanie, she had also stopped listening to her. "Ah, my notes," said Mum, noticing the tablecloth on the desk. She reached forward to take it. "You can't take that, it's evidence," said the detective sergeant. "I know," said Mum. "It's evidence of a new way of pursuing my theory." "No, it's evidence that we will have to put before a magistrate if this whole sorry mess ends up in court," said the detective sergeant. "But my notes," said Mum, becoming bewildered. "I need them." "You wrote them on a tablecloth," said Ms. Decker. "You know you're not meant to write notes on other people's property or public spaces. We held a seminar on that last year. All staff were obliged to attend." "Well, I attend all mandatory seminars," said Mum. "They are mandatory, but listening is not mandatory. It's too difficult to measure, so I wear earplugs. I can utilise the time for my work." Mrs. Decker sighed. "Come on. We need to leave before you say anything else that's incriminating." On the drive back to CERN, Friday, Melanie and Quantum were squashed into the back seat of the car. Ms. Decker insisted that Mum sit in the front passenger seat so she could scold her during the journey. "You'll have to face a disciplinary hearing before you're allowed to resume your work," said Ms. Decker. "Why?" asked Mum. "Because you did something wrong," said Ms. Decker. "Oh, well, I'll just work from home then," said Dr. Barnes. "Your home is owned by CERN," said Ms. Decker. "If they say you have to cease your research, then you have to cease your research." "But what will I do if I can't do my work?" said Mum. "Your daughter has come to visit," said Ms. Decker. "You could spend time with her." Mum looked perplexed. Friday looked horrified. "Please, no," she begged. Ms. Decker let out a long sigh. "You need to start behaving better, now more than ever." "I don't know what you mean," said Mum. "The new chief administrative scientist is arriving soon," said Ms. Decker. "We need everything to be ship-shape. We need everyone, especially our highest-profile scientists, to act like normal adults." "I behave like an adult," said Mum. "No, you don't," said Ms. Decker. "You shouldn't be allowed to walk the streets. You are so socially stupid you are a danger to yourself and our entire scientific program." "Am I to apologise for focusing on my work?" asked Mum. "Dr. Barnes, do you ever listen to anything at any of the meetings you attend?" asked Ms. Decker. "I try not to," said Mum. "Well, listen closely now, because I'm going to explain the situation to you," said Ms. Decker. "CERN was incredibly expensive to build, and now it is incredibly expensive to run. A lot of people, taxpayers, resent that expense." "But we're exploring the fundamental building blocks of existence," said Mum. "Yes, and the vast majority of people, again, taxpayers, don't care about that," said Ms. Decker. "They care about the existence of their paychecks. They don't care about the super collider, except to be mildly concerned that one day it will explode, opening up a black hole and destroying the whole planet." "Well, that would never happen," said Mum. "To create a black hole, the collider would have to be operational. If the collider exploded, that would be counterproductive. If, however, it caused an explosion—" Miss Decker took a deep breath and held it. Friday suspected she was counting to 10 in her head to resist the urge to scream at her mother. "The new chief administrative scientist is not a theoretical physicist," said Miss Decker. "His doctorate is in science administration." "Can you get a PhD for that?" asked Mum. "Apparently," said Miss Decker. Dr. Dalecki will not tolerate feuding staff, academic controversies, or budget blowouts. His job is to facilitate smooth running of the institution and ensure budgetary oversight is maintained. Well, that sounds like an excellent idea, said Mum. No, it's not, said Ms. Decker. This is where your social ignorance is a problem. To facilitate smooth running means redundancies. He will fire any difficult members of staff. Ensuring budgetary oversight is maintained means he won't hesitate to fire the highest paid troublemakers first. And since you're the Nobel laureate who just got out of prison, that means you. Oh, said Mum. Yes, oh, agreed Ms. Decker. This cannot continue. Until Dr. Dalecki arrives and settles in, you need to stay out of trouble. I'm sure I can manage that, said Mum. Well, I'm sure you can't, said Miss Decker, which is why I'm insisting that you have 24-hour care for the next 2 weeks. You mean like a babysitter? Asked Mum. I mean exactly like a babysitter, agreed Miss Decker. Friday made a scoffing noise. Who would agree to that? I will, said Quentin. I can keep an eye on Mum. No, I said someone responsible, said the lawyer. You're as bad as her. That's not fair, said Quentin. I have normal level social skills. The fact that you think that shows how abnormal your social skills are, said Ms. Decker. Well, what family member would you accept? Asked Mum. Harold's at a crucial point with his research in Zurich, and I wouldn't want to interrupt the research of any of my children. Although Hallie is working in experimental physics now, so that's hardly vital. No, said Ms. Decker, no physicists. I know all about the fallibility of physicists. Unless you can produce another socially competent relative, the only person in your family I trust is this daughter. She pointed at Friday. She seems to have some common sense and life skills. If she agrees to stay with you for the next 2 weeks in the lead-up to the disciplinary hearing, then you can stay on campus. Hey, said Friday, that's not fair. I didn't do anything. You're the one who got her out of jail, said the lawyer. You have to deal with the consequences. All right. Well, we will leave it there. To find out the rest of the story, just read the book. It's an awesome book. And next week, I'll read the first couple of chapters from the new book, Friday Barnes 13, all very exciting. The first one in over a year. So that's what's happening. I'm looking forward to that. So I'm off to Bellingen on Monday and then Melbourne to see all the people at the launch there. There's like 17 tickets are still left, although by the time this goes to air, there probably won't be. So let's just say that that's probably sold out by now. So thank you all to everyone who bought tickets. I'm looking forward to meeting you. And then I'll get back here and I'll record the first couple of chapters of that book. Oh, I might even try and record the launch in Melbourne, and then I can just play that to you on the podcast next week. That would be awesome. All right, so that's what's coming up next week. I'll either record the launch or I'll record the first couple of chapters for you for next week. Okay, well, that's it. Until next time, goodbye. Hello, it's me again. If you enjoyed listening to Bedtime Stories with R.A. Spratt, it would be really helpful if you could like, subscribe, follow, and or review the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to now. Every little one of those digital affirmations helps, and the bigger this podcast gets, the more I can justify procrastinating from my real job to keep bringing these stories to you. Thank you.